The serial killer who fooled an entire town. What if I told you that the most dangerous predator in your neighborhood might be the person everyone ignores? The homeless man on the corner, the beggar by the bus stop, the one everyone assumes is harmless because of his torn clothes and wild hair. This is the chilling, true story of how one man used society's blindness to become the most terrifying serial killer a small Nigerian town had ever seen. Picture this. A man so broke that mothers would pull their children closer just at the sight of him. His name was Madu, and he wandered the streets of a bustling Lagos suburb with nothing but the rags on his back and a mysterious sack that never left his side. To everyone who saw him, he was just another unfortunate soul lost to madness. But here's what nobody knew. That sack wasn't carrying his belongings. It was carrying his victims. For months, Madu perfected the art of invisibility. He'd appear at one bus stop for a week, sitting quietly in the corner while life buzzed around him. People selling corn, passengers rushing to catch buses, children playing nearby, all of them completely unaware they were sharing space with a monster. When locals started noticing him too much, he'd simply vanish and reappear at another bus stop across town. The genius of his method was terrifying. Who suspects a madman? Who questions what's in a crazy person's bag? Society had taught everyone to look away, to avoid, to pretend people like Madu didn't exist, and he weaponized that indifference. The horror began on what seemed like any ordinary morning. 7-year-old Skola skipped out of her house with a simple task: buy palm oil from the local shop and come straight home. It should have taken 15 minutes, but when an hour passed, then to her mother's calls echoed through empty streets. They found her shopping bag crushed in the dirt by the roadside. But Skola, she had vanished without a trace. The town searched frantically. They checked every corner, every shop, every hiding spot a child might explore. But when they questioned Madu at his usual spot by the bus stop, something chilling happened. Instead of concern or confusion, he let out a laugh. Not a crazy person's laugh, but something cold and calculating that made grown men's blood freeze. That should have been the first red flag. But fear of confronting madness kept everyone at bay. Weeks turned to months, and just when the community was beginning to accept their loss, it happened again. 10-year-old Emma left home with a yellow bucket to fetch water from the public tap. His mother found the bucket still dripping, abandoned and alone. But Emma had disappeared into thin air. Now panic gripped the town. 2 children gone without explanation, and always, lurking in the background, was Madu with that mysterious sack that seemed to grow heavier each day. But here's what absolutely nobody suspected: Madu wasn't just taking children. When darkness fell and the streets emptied, he transformed into something far more sinister. His voice would turn sickeningly sweet as he lured victims from the shadows. "Come here, little one," he'd whisper. "I have treats for you." For women walking alone at night, he'd pretend to sleep by the roadside, waiting until they came close enough to grab. Even grown men weren't safe if they wandered into the wrong alley at the wrong time. Each night, his sack grew heavier. Each morning, he'd reappear at a different bus stop, playing the harmless madman while the town mourned its missing. The most twisted part: Madu wasn't working alone. Deep in forgotten back alleys, ritualists waited for his gruesome deliveries. They paid him handsomely: bundles of cash, bags of rice, bottles of expensive alcohol. Because in some dark corners of society, human body parts are worth more than gold. By dawn, Madu would be back at his corner, chewing sticks and humming to himself, the picture of innocent madness, the perfect disguise for the perfect killer. But every predator eventually makes a mistake, and Madu's downfall came from the most unexpected source: kindness itself. In a mansion on the wealthy side of town lived Ifna, daughter of Chief Obina, one of the richest men in the city. She was everything Madu's other victims weren't: protected, valuable, and completely untouchable, which made her the ultimate prize. Ifana noticed Madu during a drive through town and felt something most people had forgotten: compassion. Despite her assistant's warnings about the dangerous madman, she began bringing him food: hot bowls of soup, rice, anything to ease what she saw as suffering. To the town, she was being foolishly kind to a crazy person. To Madu, she was walking straight into his trap. He studied her patterns like a hunter studies prey. The time she came, the route she took, how her driver sometimes dropped her off at a distance so she could walk the final stretch alone. Behind his grateful smiles and soft thank yous, His mind was calculating the biggest payday of his life. The ritualists would pay anything for the head of a billionaire's daughter. On that fateful evening, Efana came, as she always did, carrying her small basket of food. But this time, when the buses stopped running and the crowds went home, she never returned to the mansion. When her panicked father sent security teams to flood the streets, an old woman at a roadside kiosk pointed them toward the truth. "Check that madman with the sack. It's always full, and it smells too sweet to be garbage." The guards found Madu exactly where she said he'd be, sitting calmly with his sack beside him. When they demanded to know what was inside, he screamed about spirits and curses, trying, one last time, to use superstition as his shield. But this time, no one was backing down. What they found when they ripped open that sack will haunt me forever. There, on top, was Ifana's head, her long black hair still shining under the streetlights. Beneath her were the faces of Skola, Emma, and so many other children whose families had never stopped searching. The crowd that gathered screamed, people fainted, others fell to their knees. The smell alone told the story of months of hidden horror. But here's where this story takes its most shocking twist. As they dragged Madu away, he didn't beg or cry or show remorse. Instead, he threw back his head and laughed, a sound so evil it echoed through the street like something from hell itself. Standing before the billionaire whose daughter he'd murdered, Madu dropped a bombshell that shattered everything. "Your greed feeds the ritualists. Without people like you, rich men who pay anything for more power, there would be no market for the heads I bring." The crowd fell silent as the horrifying truth sank in. Chief Obina, the grieving father demanding justice, was one of Madu's customers. He had been buying the very heads this monster delivered, building his wealth on the blood of other people's children. The cosmic justice was devastating. The ritualist had unknowingly paid for his own daughter's murder. When the truth exploded, across the town, rage turned to revolution. The mansion gates shook under angry fists, windows shattered, furniture burned in the streets. The empire built on innocent blood crumbled in hours. The investigation that followed unraveled an entire network. Names spilled under questioning, other buyers, other ritualists, a whole system of evil hiding in plain sight. One by one, they were dragged from their homes to face justice. The courts showed no mercy, life in prison for every single one of them. But here's what stayed with me long after learning this story. It wasn't just about one serial killer or even a network of ritualists. It was about how a society's willingness to look away, to ignore the uncomfortable, creates the perfect hunting ground for monsters. Madu succeeded because everyone assumed madness meant harmless. He killed for months because poverty made him invisible, and children died because adults chose comfort over curiosity about what was really in that sack. The town learned the hardest lesson of all. Evil doesn't always announce itself with horns and fangs. Sometimes it wears rags and sits quietly in corners, waiting for us to stop paying attention. This story shook me to my core, and I hope it opens your eyes to the monsters that might be hiding in plain sight around you. What did you take away from this tale? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories that will change how you see the world around you.